Ayman Khan here for Seconds Out with the one and only Eddie Hearn, looking sharp ahead of Wood versus Warrington. Both fighters have got to be sharp on Saturday night. Standing on the edge of defeat leaves them in a bad place. What do you make of the fight?
I think it's a true British great. I think both guys really confident. I mean, confident they win the fight by stoppage. And I think it's impossible for anyone to make a true pick with any real confidence. I think it's going to be an electric pace. I don't think the fight goes 7 or 8 rounds. I think the fight will end by stoppage. Both guys can get hurt in the fight, but I think the atmosphere, the occasion, they're going to go at it from the first bell and can't wait. Great card as well from top to bottom. And like I said, like a true British classic that probably in years gone by, it's like one you look forward to all year. And now it's sort of come around amongst a busy schedule of boxing in general. But yeah, this is really one to make sure you keep your eyes on.
You're surprised by people saying that maybe this could go to points given the nature of how the two fighters fight?
I think the favourite would be points. Me personally, I don't see it that way. I think Josh comes out. I think he's very, very active. I think he throws a lot of punches. I think he feels that Leigh Wood's slightly fragile. And I think Leigh Wood feels that Warrington's going to walk onto everything. And we know how hard Leigh Wood punches. So I think probably the favourite scenario is a 12-round war. But I just feel that the fight will end by stoppage.
In terms of the undercard, some decent fights to look out for. Linus Dothier and Kieran Conroy stands out, as does Harper and Breakhouse. Talk me through the undercard.
Yeah, I mean, those two great. Conor Coghill against Hobie Price, I really like. It's another final eliminator for the British title. Janae Boston's in a tough fight. And before the bell, you got Cameron Vong making his debut. You got Nico Leviar's in a tough fight. Kobe McNamara, I think, top to bottom, a fantastic night of boxing.
In terms of Leigh Wood and Josh Warrington, I feel like maybe it's warranted that maybe take some credit in terms of Leigh Wood's career and then maybe some stick in terms of where Josh Warrington stands right now. Do you feel that's a fair assessment as to the handling of both fighters in terms of the assets as they are to matchroom boxing?
Yeah, I think that, both guys have, especially over the last 3 years, have been in big standout nights. Josh Warrington's done it for a longer period of time. I mean, I feel like sometimes people look at Leigh Wood and look at his career sort of pre-Kanzu and take that into account, where really if you take that period from Kanzu on, he's looked like the best featherweight in the world. And his wins have proven that as well. So Josh has done it consistently over a long period of time. But the question marks might be around Josh. What do you have left? I still think he's 100% a fresh fighter. And that's why I think it's a pure 50-50 on Saturday.
In terms of getting your thoughts on a couple of things in the wider boxing sphere, my colleague Danny Flexen spoke to Nissa Sal, and Nissa said, look, they're potentially going to take a legal challenge in terms of Fury Usyk because Hrgovic is mandatory. You stand as a co-promoter, is that something that you back, legal challenge to Fury versus Usyk happening?
For sure. Look, the reality is the IBF should have sent negotiations. Like, they do it for smaller champions, and they would have sent the letter immediately, but they didn't send this letter. They waited for negotiations to carry on, and now we have a contract signed. Have they been sent to the IBF? Why wasn't the mandatory called for Filip Hrgovic after the Dubois fight, which it should have been? So obviously, Sauerland and us, who are partners on Filip Hrgovic, are heavily invested in Filip Hrgovic. We were told he had to fight that fight against McKean to make sure that he could get ordered. So we've given him a fight. We've paid the purses for that fight, really on the bravado that he's mandatory. And if he's mandatory, that should have been called straight after the Dubois fight. So yes, there are a lot of things ongoing from our side. We have to support our fighter, and we will do that in this situation.
You don't stand too popular, potentially causing a blockade to the undisputed and Fury Usyk, and someone who's not too popular with yourself is Frank Warren, who said to you through Danny Flexen and Seconds Out, stay out of my business in terms of making the Fury Usyk. Just your response to that?
It's not really just his business. It's Filip Hrgovic's business. And he'd be doing the same. I mean, don't forget, he was straight in sending letters to the WBA about Daniel Dubois' low blow. All of a sudden, he's not supporting Daniel Dubois anymore. He's just sort of parked him up. Yeah, maybe he can get a chance down the line. So at the end of the day, Fury Usyk have nothing to do with us. We have to represent our fighter. And the reality is that mandatory should have been called for Filip Hrgovic. It hasn't. We want to know why. We want to know why the rules haven't been followed. And yeah, we will stand by that and make sure that we do the best for our fighter. So, I'll stay out of his business. He can stay out of mine, which is making sure that we do right by our client. And that's what we'll do.
Eubank Jr. stands prospectively to be on the 23rd of December. Are you essentially maybe back-footing yourself if Fury versus Usyk does land on the same day?
I think our plan is to do Eubank Ben on December 23rd. Of course, look, if that's the date for Fury Usyk, we have to reconsider that position. But right now, there is a chance we can get that fight made in the next week. And if we do that, we will probably move forward with the 23rd. And then it'll be up to them if they want to go. And maybe we should have a conversation in the meantime to see if that is actually going to be the date. It sounds very soon for me in terms of making that fight happen with a promotion and after the Ngannou fight. So we'll have to see, but 23rd is definitely our intention.
Which is the bigger fight?
I think probably Fury Usyk. I think it's a worldwide undisputed heavyweight title fight, but the controversy, the history, the legacy of Ben Eubank, it ain't far behind.
Should boxing fans be excited now that there's been a poster and the fight is signed? Boxing better than a lot of people.
I do think the fight will happen. Could I hand on heart say it's going to happen? No, because of the history mainly of Tyson Fury. But look, when there's a load of money, generally fights happen, and that's why the fight is happening in the first place. So I think the fight will happen. When it will happen, I don't know. And like I said before, it's great for the sport.
George Grosny says he favours Usyk in the fight. Do you?
No, I fancy Tyson Fury in the fight. I think he's the favourite going into the fight, but Usyk's very good. I think he'll rise to the occasion, but I think the size of Fury, I think it'll be a stinker, in all honesty. But it might have to be a stinker for Tyson to win the way that he can win, which may be easily, but I think it's a very competitive fight. But I favour Tyson Fury.
On the theme of the heavyweights at the top of the sport, Anthony Joshua looking for an opponent. Maybe Wilder happens later, in next year. But what about this year? Who stands to be the potential opponents?
It really depends if he goes straight into the Wilder fight. I mean, I spoke to Shelley Finkel yesterday. We want the fight. He wants the fight 100%. So I truly believe that fight will get made. It just is what we do in the meantime. Josh is ready to fly back to Derek James and get back into camp. So we'll have to see if that's a December fight or if we get the Wilder fight done for February. March, ideally if he's going to wait, we want the fight to happen in February.
Does this new Saudi shift in representation of boxing fights and making fights, do they have the same level of interest in AJ Wilder as maybe Skills Challenge did have?
Yeah, I think Saudi would like the fight between AJ and Wilder. Obviously, we've already agreed terms to do that fight in Saudi. It didn't materialise, but we're more than happy to return there for the fight or take it elsewhere.
Final things for me, Eddie. De La Hoya and Bob Arum were pictured together saying we need to make some big fights. Where was your invite for the picture?
No, apparently he wants to make all the big fights between promoters, but he's happy to slag me off non-stop on social media. So, look, I'm more than happy to sit down with any promoter. I think, obviously, the winner of Prograis against Devin Haney is the front runner to fight Ryan Garcia next. But we'll see. Ryan Garcia's got a tough fight against Duarte. He can punch, and obviously, Haney Prograis comes up December 9. Always willing to sit down with these boys and make the big fights happen.
Ayman Munguia and Ryder close?
Yeah, close. And I think if Ryder doesn't get that fight, I think we'll make Ryder against Berlanga.
Lastly, I saw something a bit strange. I know Misfits Boxing Scene represents itself in its own sphere, but KSI is calling out Ryan Garcia and really kind of levering into him. What do you make of that?
I don't know. Probably a bit of build-up and hype for next week, which I'm looking forward to next week. I think it's going to be wild. Huge numbers on DAZN incoming. And, the crazy world of boxing.
Crazy world of boxing, indeed. Cheers, Eddie. Appreciate it. Good conversation.